Hello everyone, my name is Nokanya Hlabangana and I'm your host, and this is Voice It Youth Talk Show, a talk show for the youth, from the youth, whereby the youth get to voice out challenges that they may not be able to communicate with their parents, guardians, or even their friends. Well, Voice It has got your back. For the next few weeks, we're going to be tackling a series under the theme Culture and Christian Living. And for this week, we're delving deeper into the topic of how can I live holy in a world that glorifies sin. I'm not alone. Joining me today is my lovely co-host, Brendan.
Brandon Sibelo here, just like she has said. And our topic again today is going to be how to live in a world that glorifies sin. And again, we're not alone. We've got two lovely ladies joining us here on set. And they are...
Hi everyone, my name is Nobukosi Swanda and I'm one of the guests today. And thank you for having me.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Hi everyone, I go by the name Nicole Mpofu and I'm very glad to be joining the Voice It Talk Show.
Thank you. So, on that note, I've got a set of questions which seem to be problematic in our day-to-day lives pertaining to this question. And one of these questions is, what are some daily practices, that keep people grounded in holiness and amidst all the distractions of the world?
Okay, so firstly, it is very important for you to start your day with Christ.
Okay.
So a morning devotion to set the tone for the rest of the day. So before you begin with your devotion, pray. Why is prayer important? You are praying for understanding of what you are going to be reading.
Yeah.
You are trying to avoid a situation whereby you are now passively reading your Bible.
Okay.
You wake up in the morning, hey, let me just get over and done with this.
Yeah.
So you just cruise through a chapter. Pray for understanding, whatever it is that you'll be reading. And even after your devotion, pray for the strength to apply everything you've been reading throughout the course of the day.
Yeah.
So that's the very first thing, morning devotion and prayer. And then throughout the course of the day, guard your mind. Be careful of what you take in, all the media you consume. Be careful what you listen to, what you watch, the conversations you have with your friends. Be very mindful of the words that you speak.
Yeah.
And another thing we can do is have fellowship with other fellow believers.
Yeah.
You are a student at school. Find time throughout the course of the day to meet with your friends, and read God's word, but not just passively reading, but understanding.
Yeah.
This will help you better understand and know who Christ really is.
Okay.
Now, after having done all of that throughout the course of the day, at the end of the day, you then need to reflect.
So the key point being, number one, before reflecting, being understanding.
Understand what
Understanding, because I saw you went, I think, twice or three times.
It's very important
to understand.
It's
very important to understand.
Okay. And then, like I was saying, at the end of the day, reflect. Look back at all it is that you did throughout the course. Questions you should be asking yourself are, did I honor God in all that I did?
Indeed, I understand.
Did I understand, And in the days to come, what can I do better?
Yeah.
What changes can I make in my days so I honor God, so people see God through me?
Yeah.
So I feel like those are practical steps we can take in our day-to-day lives.
Interesting.
Right. Maybe the word holy, or rather holiness, is rather vague.
Yeah.
So maybe we can explain to the people what exactly we mean by holy or holiness.
Well, if I find it difficult to put it into context, right? Being holy, we can put it and say it's being set apart.
Right.
Right. I think maybe somewhere we're going to dive into that along the topic. Being unique, being sanctified, matter of purity, if I may put it again. But now, our main, as Christians, right, our main roadmap to what's it called, to holiness is in the Bible, because the Bible gives us, let me say, a certain perspective on what purity and being sacred means, right? So I think, and again, prayer is key in everything we do as Christians, because speaking to God is one of the most important things we can ever do as Christians. All right. Anybody?
I think another thing, he talked about being set apart. So I also mentioned guarding your mind, being careful of what you
Right.
listen to, what you watch. So with the music you listen to, ask yourself, will people see Christ through me, with this music that I listen to, with these movies that I watch, the conversations I have with my fellow friends, my colleagues, associates and everything. You should be different. When I talk to you, a conversation I have with you should be different.
Should show
Yeah.
that.
It should show.
Yeah.
So I think guarding your heart, guarding your mind, it goes hand in hand with being set apart, being careful of everything that you take in.
Yeah.
And prayer will help you draw closer to God. It will make you have good decisions in everything that you do.
Yeah.
You creating that relationship with God means you're trying to help yourself live different amongst everyone.
Yeah.
So that will help you in everything that you would do.
Right. So I keep hearing this phrase, set apart, set apart. Now, don't you believe that if you now set yourself apart and you try to be unique, you try to be different, will that not then set you apart from society itself? Now, it will seem like, you're trying to not be with the society. Doesn't that make you irrelevant to society?
Well, living a life that inspires others, drawing closer to God, though, will help you. They won't try and take you away from their circle. They will actually learn from you.
Right.
And it will
Okay.
be.
Interesting.
And they'll accept you for who you are
Exactly.
because of the things that you're portraying to them. Okay. All right.
I think another thing, it's very important for us to know that it's never going to be easy. Your friends are going to go and drink, it's going to be very difficult for you to say, I will not do this, but that's fine. So that's where prayer then comes in. Pray to God for strength to say, even though my friends are doing this and this and this, I will not do that. It may seem like the unpopular opinion, but that's okay because you are not living for them, but you are living for Christ. So it may not be easy, but it is the right path. It's the path we should be following.
Right. Well, it's nice that you're actually mentioning prayer because indeed prayer is the key. Now, what role does prayer really play in now staying holy or navigating that path of holiness in a world that is full of temptation?
That's an interesting
Okay,
one.
so this world is so full of temptation, like you
Right.
already said, from social media, peer pressures, and just the normalization of sin as a whole. Temptation is everywhere. Matthew 26 verse 41 says, watch and pray so you will not fall into temptation.
Yeah.
For the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak.
Yeah.
What is this verse telling us? Our human willpower is just not enough. It is insufficient. It's not enough for us to resist temptations that will come our way. It's not enough for us to overcome whatever temptations it is that we may face. So you need to pray for spiritual strength to resist, strength to overcome. And in you praying, you are then seeking God's guidance. In all the decisions that you make, you are praying for his guidance. May they be decisions that bring you closer to him, So
Right.
that's why prayer is very important.
Okay. And I've got another question then. I heard you talk about peers, but now how do we then maintain, the purity in our relationships when it comes to, these things that our friends do and these things that we do and our beliefs, like everyone's got their own kind of beliefs and there is a belief system within the world. But now how do we then balance our peer-to-peer relations, like the purity within our relationships in this world? How do we maintain that?
In our relationships, we have to set certain boundaries. You tell people what you do and what you don't do.
Okay.
So when you set your boundaries, it makes you be different from everyone.
Yeah.
They are able to accept you the way you are if you set your boundaries and you tell them, I don't do this, I do that. They will just respect your decision. It makes it easy for them to associate with you as you have set your boundaries.
Okay. So which means it kind of like sets aside, it removes let me say the factor of people assuming who you are.
Exactly.
Okay.
They will know that she doesn't do this, she does this.
Okay. Okay.
Right. So I see it's a matter of standing your ground. So we have to stand our ground. And I realize that as the youth, it is quite difficult for us to stand our ground because, as you mentioned, peer pressure. Now, how do we then balance how do we find that balance? Because we have friends that do not necessarily have the same faith that aligns with us. So how do we balance living a holy life or leading holy lives while still having friends that do not have the same faith as us?
You should know your values.
Right.
And then you try and align yourself with people who believe in what you believe in.
Right.
Who have the same belief as you. Because when you try to explain to people and tell them this is how I am and they don't get it, I think it's best for you to just step back.
Okay, I kind of have a question on that one. So now
Likewise.
we'll not really have, we can't have a scenario whereby all my friends have the same faith as me. Obviously, we go to different schools where we find different people, and we click with those people. But then it turns out that they do not have the same faith as us. So now, are you meaning that we shouldn't accept such friendships?
Or associate.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you shouldn't accept them. You have to tell them what you believe in.
Right.
And then set the tone. Tell them, I don't do this.
Okay.
If they don't appreciate you, that's when you step back. But at least you voiced out yourself and you were like, this is how I am. And then...
Okay. Quite interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to close that segment. Please stay with us. We are Voice It. Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brandon Sibelo, your host here on Voice It. Right now in this segment, we're going to be focusing on our question and answers from people around the world who have got questions for us, and the panel we're going to try and answer as best as we can. And with me again here is my co-host, Kanya.
Hi, everyone. Well, so we're going to dive right into it. So now we have a question coming in from Wuhle, and she says, how can I resist temptation to sin when it's all around me?
I will take that one. Being at the right place, at the right time, with the right people. I think that's the best way to resist temptation.
Right.
Kosi, what's your view on this?
There's a saying that says, bad company corrupts good morals. So like Nicole has said, surround yourself with godly company. People who will encourage you in your work with God, in your walk with God. Be mindful of the people you keep around you at all times, because they greatly influence who you then become as a person. So I think the most important part with us as youth is to surround yourself with godly company always.
Okay, that's quite interesting. The one thing about Kosi, she always got a saying. She must be well read. She's always got a saying for everything, and she's always got a verse to actually lead it on. But on that note, again, there's another question that comes in from Malik. Malik says, "Have you ever felt pressured to act holy rather than be holy?"
I think it's a very common thing.
Yeah.
It can happen. Say in our social circles, you have that one friend who people then like to call holier than thou. You know? So in their presence, you may feel pressured to
Act holy.
And do what they do, align with their values, because you feel like it's the right thing to do. Now, it is very common, but I feel like it's okay. I think it's not important how you found Christ. It's the fact that you're there that matters.
Okay.
So whether you stumbled upon the church and you got in here, just say, hey, let me just pass time.
Yeah.
I think what's important is that you are now there. So I think it's okay.
Are you not forcing yourself, like when you try to strain yourself to act holy? Doesn't that kind of end up questioning your faith? Don't you end up questioning your faith because you're trying to act holy in a place where you don't want to act holy? That's not what you want, but you're doing it because someone else is doing it.
But then someone else might pose a question to say, instead of acting holy, Rather, why not just be holy?
As time goes by,
You will.
be.
without even
Okay.
realizing it, you will start to behave that way.
Okay.
And not out of force matter, but it'll become a part of you. I feel like as time goes by, you then adopt,
So fake it till you make it.
I guess so.
All right, so we have another question coming in from Tadiwa, and he says, whenever I'm with my peers, I feel like I'm the only one who wants to stay holy. So how can I stay strong?
In the first segment, we talked about the importance of prayer.
Yeah.
Right.
Prayer is the most important part. Pray. It's very normal to feel like an outsider in your own friend group,
Imagine.
But like we said before, prayer is the most important part. Stay strong in prayer. Pray for strength, pray for guidance and all that you do. I think for me, prayer is the most important part.
And besides praying, you can just try and not listen to what they say. They will be judgmental and they will criticize. Try to avoid them from saying all that.
It's not just easy when you say try. It's not that easy.
It's not that easy.
It's not.
Mute them. You mute.
Also, you just mute
Okay.
everything that they
Okay.
say.
People will always talk. I think that's what we need to acknowledge. People will always have a say.
Yeah.
As we are sitting here, we have our own opinions on
Yeah.
certain things. People will always talk, but stay strong in prayer. I'm
And
going
it's how
back
you
to
take
prayer.
it.
Well, so what I'm getting is that regardless of whether or not you are holy, people will talk. So you just have to block everything out and know why you actually are being holy. Okay?
Okay,
Remember
but
why
now,
you started.
But now, I'm looking at another question here from Anisu. The thing is, we've talked of prayer, right? But now this question brings in the Bible, and it says, the Bible says, be holy as I am holy, right? And then ask the question, is that command realistic for young people? I'm actually quite interested in this one. Is that command realistic for young people? We're young people here. Is it realistic?
If we say it's unrealistic and we say being holy is impossible, no one is going to heaven because we're going to say, hey, Lord, look at this situation. Look at this world we're living in.
We can't
It's
be-
not possible, Lord. My friend, it's all around me. If we have that mindset, none of us are going to heaven.
Well, under that caption from Tadiwa, I see there was a response from somebody else. He says, if it wasn't possible, if it wasn't realistic, then it wouldn't be in the Bible. What's your take on that statement? Kanye, what's your take on that statement?
I personally believe that God has a reason why it was in the Bible, because he knows that, okay, the Lord thinks ahead.
Yeah.
Right? We have to take note that he thinks ahead. He knows what will happen.
Future type guy.
Yeah. So he knew that would be in this situation,
Yeah.
would be in this generation, would be in this world that we're now living in that is full of temptation. So he wouldn't have put it in the Bible if it is not practical or possible. So I think we just have to read to understand, and then it'll be practical.
Okay, so Daniel had some principles and beliefs that he had, and people would judge him. They would think he's kind of weird or something, but he still lived up to it despite everything that was going on in his life.
Right.
So we can just be like Daniel and follow the path of being holy.
Regardless.
We are
Regardless
told
of
that
everything.
there's no temptation that the Lord that can ever come our way that we cannot overcome. So
Right.
it is possible.
Yeah,
To answer him, it is
Yeah.
possible.
it is possible.
Okay.
Interesting.
On that note, we have a question coming in from Andrew, and he says, how can I stay confident in my faith when the world is trying to tear me down?
Know what you stand for.
Yes,
Forward.
stand your ground. Be strong, be firm about
That's
everything.
the only way.
Right. Okay.
Okay, standing your ground in what way? Many people we might think, standing your ground might mean,
No, drawing yourself closer to the Lord.
Yeah, yeah.
Standing your ground and drawing yourself closer to God.
That's
On the part on standing your ground, your friends can come and say, but the Bible doesn't say there's anything wrong with doing this or with doing that.
Yeah.
You should be able to stand your ground, defend
Quote
your
verses.
principle. if you have to quote verses, but be careful not to misinterpret the
Yeah.
verses of it. But stand your ground. Know what you stand for.
Okay. And there's a question that's troubling me right now because I have experienced it in some way or another. All right. A question coming in from Vuyelwa. Vuyelwa says, can we be holy without becoming judgmental? Because I've met scenarios whereby some people say, acting holier than thou, like you said. And when they say you're acting holier than thou, it comes up and says, and they come up and say, you're being judgmental. Don't judge, you're being judgmental. Those type of statements. But now the question is posed to a young person sitting here out there by Vuyelwa saying, can you be holy without being what?
Judgmental.
Judgmental. So meaning there are people who are what? Judgmental and holy at the same time. Yeah.
I think when you've gotten to a point where your relationship with Christ has really grown, to avoid then being judgmental, remember where you are coming from.
Yeah.
You weren't always the way you are now. There was a time you were also spending hours at the club, you were drinking, all these crazy things. So remember where you are coming from and acknowledge the fact that someone else is still at that point.
Yeah.
They haven't gotten to the point where you currently are.
Yeah.
So remember where you are coming from. We're all at different points in our walk with Christ. So just because you have had an encounter with him doesn't mean I have.
Yeah.
So you need to acknowledge and respect that, and always remember that you weren't at the point where you are now.
Oh.
So I think that's what we need to have in our minds to avoid getting to a point where we then look at others and judge. Hey, so you're really going to the club? Are you sure? So remember where you're coming from. Yeah. That's
anything to add?
You should take your time. Let that person take their time to change. As Kosi said,
okay,
where you are at right now is not where you were at the whole time. You started from the trenches, and then you're getting there.
But again, Vuyelwa, it is possible. It is possible, Vuyelwa, for you to be holy without being judgmental. But thank you for that question. Over to you, Kanye.
All right. Let me see which other question we can take. Okay, we have a question from Wonyi from the South. And she says, how can I deal with feelings of guilt or shame when I sin?
We all fall. That's what I'll start with. It's not always going to be an upward journey. It's not going to be easy. I don't think anything in this life is easy. So you will fall, and I think we need to be honest, very candid with ourselves here as youth. Some of us swear, some of us drink, all these things we know we're not supposed to be doing.
Right.
So I'll use swearing as an example. You've told yourself, Lord, I want to change. I don't want to keep doing this. Yeah. And then one day it just so happens that you're saying something, you get upset, road rage, you're driving on your way to school and someone does something absolutely crazy on the road and then you find yourself swearing. It's very normal, all four. But what's important is for you to find your way back to Christ.
Yeah. Right.
Pray about it. Lord, I have fallen. I have made this mistake. I've gone back to that thing I said I'd stop doing. Pray for him to give you the strength to then move from that and move forward. Yeah. But also be very earnest in your prayers. Be honest with yourself. Do you really want to let go of that sin? Because if you don't, you're going to find yourself back at it again. Okay. So be very honest in your prayers. Pray to God for strength to, be able to move on from that.
Right. Okay. Because truly, one thing that the devil will do if you indeed sin, he will make you feel guilty. And that is where now we tend to divert and now we lack in our faith, because we believe that, oh no, now that I've sinned, the Lord will not take me back the same way. But then we need to acknowledge the fact that the Lord welcomes us back because we are his children and he loves us so much and he always will.
Yeah.
Right.
And again, the devil is, the master at this game, the master of deception, the master of actually bringing you to the utmost lows to say,
right.
In terms of self-esteem, we always talk about low self-esteem. That guy is a master. And again, looking at another question here, I was just loving the name. Brastivova comes up and says, is it possible to be holy at school, college, or work without being tamed, weird, and being out of place? Now, that's an interesting one.
Here's the thing, like we already said, people will always talk.
Yeah.
Always have that on your mind. People will always talk, but don't let that get to you.
Okay.
You have your beliefs, they have their beliefs. You may find yourself judging some of their beliefs. So people will always talk, but don't let it get to you. You are on the right path. You know you are on the right path. You know, I'm sure people looked at Daniel and thought he was weird.
Yeah.
You know, people looked at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and thought, these boys are refusing all this wonderful food, you know, that type of thing. People will always talk, but don't let it get to you. Just stay grounded and rooted in your beliefs. You are on the right path.
Yeah, and Nikki, I was actually coming to you love, to say,
Sometimes you might find those people weird as well.
yeah,
Yes, but you don't say it just because they have the right to say it doesn't mean you don't have your own opinion.
Yeah.
So those opinions shouldn't get to you.
But have you ever had personal experiences, say, of people deeming you weird, maybe within at work or at school, for some practices that you have, which coincide with your Christian beliefs?
It happens.
It happens.
It happens everywhere. You face it.
Yeah.
It's your daily life. People will always talk.
Okay. That's interesting.
We have another question from Ngosi from Selborne, and he says, I feel like the problem is my mindset. Now, how can I develop a mindset that resists sin as a culture that glorifies sin?
So the Bible tells us to set our minds on things above and not on the things of this earth.
Right.
Always remember that your life has a greater purpose. You are here to glorify God, not to please the world. So you need to renew your mind. But how do you renew your mind? Spending time in scripture, spending time, praying to God for his guidance, godly company as well, keeping godly company, be with people who encourage you, people who can keep you accountable in your walk with Christ, That's another way. And also just practicing obedience, obeying God's laws, even when it seems like the unpopular thing to do.
Yeah.
We've been talking about, seeming like the outcast, feeling weird, but just obey God's laws.
Okay. Thank you so much for watching. We have reached the end of our segment. We can, in fact, stay holy in this world that we live in that is full of temptation. However, it is quite a difficult task, which needs us to stand firm in our faith. Now, catch us on the next episode where we delve deeper into the topic.
And please remember, we are Voice It.